only like 4 weeks away, even less, we are hosting the very, very first ever Tartaria Australia event here in Australia. Cambell, I'm so excited. We are making an announcement. The community is coming together live in person.
So guys, this is the very first. So if you can get there, get there. We're going to have a morning of Tartaria, everything alternative ancient history. And then in the afternoon, we're going to move into creating tribes and getting to know everyone and meeting up.
So the event's called Tartaria, Achieving the Impossible Dream. What we love about this so much is that everything that Tartaria has done for every single one of us is made the impossible possible. We have literally transformed our complete minds and how we perceive reality, where the most fairy tale attributes, the most out there attributes that we could never have imagined conceptually could possibly have been real has suddenly become our true reality. And with that as a foundational application, we are going to actually work with our Tartarian community to achieve your personal impossible dreams. Why are we doing that? Because we have to do something with this consciousness. The next step as a community is to come together, because something Cambell and I realized very quickly was that isolation is a dream killer. For our extended community, this is an opportunity. If you're in the Melbourne region or in Australia and want to fly in, because everyone can fly now, or if you're international and are bold enough to want to go this way, this is the very, very first ever Tartaria event live in Australia's known history. And we are so excited to launch it. So mainly because Cambell and I need it as much as you guys do. We need our community. So the 25th of June, $44 a ticket, tea and biscuits provided, and you are going to meet each other for the first very time. And I guarantee you, because our minds are so beautiful and so bold, it's going to be an event that changes your life, all of our lives, forever.
Yeah,
I'm excited, Cambell.
It's going to be going down in, it's going to be the start of the new history. This one will be down in history.
Exactly.
Yeah, guys, you don't want to miss this one. It's the very first. It's going to be high energy. It's going to be amazing. So you'll find the link below. Click it, share this video, bring everyone you can. And let's do this, right? Tartaria Australia, achieving your impossible dream.
Good morning, Tartaria Australia and Autodidactic. Hey, buddy, how you going in this wintry day, my end? What's the weather like over there?
It's pretty chilly. It's blue, but it's cold, man. It's cold.
Yeah, cold and spooky for our haunted Tartarian Australian episode. What are we covering today, Cambell? This is going to be fun.
Yeah. The asylums.
Yes.
Part of it. The lunatic asylums. Obviously, there's a big story there, but something that seems to be attached to those asylums is, all these spooky spirit mirrors or whatever they were called, ghost TVs, strange devices and electronics and things which seem to have evolved into what we heard about in these asylums in the 40s and 50s, right? All these lobotomies and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a story here.
Yeah, there's definitely a link. Like, we've had so many people ask us, cover the Australian lunatic asylums, and we've been like, yeah, of course we will. Duh, greatest topic ever. But we didn't just want to look at the buildings. We wanted to sort of, connect it a little bit more deeper to sort of more of our deeper theories and how these all link in and wire and fire with the lunatic asylums, because we've got a few variables there. We know that the reset introduced, we think, the moon, the darkness in some capacity. We know that lunatic and the word lunar and moon is in the actual name. We know that these asylums came about all at the same time, it appears, sort of lunatic asylums were everywhere, sort of alongside the orphanages. We know there's sort of a timeline period to their introduction. And we know that we've also got all this crazy spirit technology that comes through the Tartarian imagery from that sort of like, 1800s photographs. And then the connection to lunatic asylums always being haunted. And we're going to put all that together and come up with some cool new theory, Cambell.
Let's see where it takes us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, the moon, I mean, lunatic, right? We all know this. And obviously the connection to werewolves, how the moon and all this kind of stuff. So, if the moon was introduced, you can imagine that if you'd never seen it and suddenly it's there in the sky, you might turn into a bit of a lunatic, right? Running around screaming and stuff. And then, I mean, the bigger question is, what were they then doing to these people? I mean, because we know they would have been locking up whoever they wanted, right? And then what were they doing with all these? Because we get all these stories of the mad scientists, but that's all we really get, right?
I know.
Period. Like, to the normal person, you wouldn't really be talking electricity in the late 1800s and machines and building all this stuff. The popular sort of view is, that wasn't really around then. It was really sort of the 1900s, 1920s when it started. But back in the 1800s, they were making these contraptions and doing stuff that, again, I don't think they want us to know about.
I know there was weird shit. Like when I was looking at the photographs, that it's not just like these, heads in sort of these vessels, like these ghostly heads, but there's also there's a whole genre of photographs of headless people. Like that was like a Victorian thing. This is the imagery of that, and people have said, this is their first attempt at Photoshop sort of and camera manipulation. But I'm just thinking, come on, there's something else going on. There's
Why is it all headless? Yeah.
Yes.
And the heads in the jars that we see a lot of, iconography for. But yeah, I did a video on Photoshop, and there's this one of all these soldiers, about 20 of them standing in, and they're all holding their head under their arms. Yeah. And it's just like,
that's just weird.
Weird.
It's weird, right? It's weird. And then you've got all these other photos of just like, basically, I'm going to use the term, this is how they're termed, but freaks, right? Where, these, but what they are is just really genetic abnormalities of, humans. But in that time period, there was a massive, now I'm not saying that they're not here today, those abnormalities, and for fucking with all the poison on our planet, there definitely is some abnormalities and all the Agent Orange that went through Vietnam. But there does seem to be a concentrated thing where like they had freak shows, they have all these portraits and photographs of humans deformed or crossed with animals or all these sorts of different combinations, and alongside with the headless photographs and alongside these spirits in vessel photographs, and that all happened sort of the same time era. That's which we know was when humans are reintroduced after this reset. So that's interesting. And then we're going to connect it here to the asylums and what function did the asylums play that were continuing potentially or somehow facilitating this connection with the freaky, inverted, modified human spirit realm. And one thing, Cambell, we know for sure, with these lunatic asylums, they always focused on electricity, didn't they? Like electricity was a major trick.
Yeah, always. And look where we are now, right? With all the waves and stuff in the environment getting shot at us, and 5G and all this kind of stuff, and really that's all still to manipulate our consciousness, right? Or at least our perception. And so is this what this all was? Were they testing out? We know about the orphan children being released, and they just kind of find the errants, the free thinkers, and lock them up for testing because they didn't want them out in the population. And then through the evolution of that, what they found out, they're now still using that on us, but just now they're using it on the whole population, right? The testing's done, I guess. So
they've shut the asylums down. Now they've made the whole world the lunatic asylum. Essentially, that is the case. Yeah.
And I mean, just think of Dr. Frankenstein's monster, right? Famous book. made a human out of different pieces and then used electricity to bring him to life.
I mean, Frankenstein, Jekyll and Hyde, all of that sort of macabre literature that appeared sort of again, Alan
all
Poe,
that time period, yeah.
All the same time period, all there, it's just, and we know that literature of that time period were introducing the parameters of the realm. Like when we did our Christmas episode and we saw the Charles Dickens, it sort of laid out this is the happy family. But yeah, I mean, Edgar Allan Poe was very much of that ilk. And we've got, today we've got people like Stephen King setting up, Stephen King did a whole series called The Dome. Which they're all, and so, but let me show you some of these photos that I found. Like, this is before we even go into the architecture of the buildings. So look, because I know we've all seen them before, right? We have all seen these guys.
Oh, come on now, that's a dude in a dress too, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, we can't say that this isn't Photoshop. We can't say that. Like, I don't have the time to sit here and analyze every single fucking photo. What I can tell you is there's enough of them. There's a lot of them for us to say, okay, well, something's going on here. There's hundreds of these. You just got to find them.
Well, it's even if all the photos are fake, right? Just so we could prove they're all fake, they're still representing something.
Yeah.
Still trying to tell us something in the photos. It's kind of like the cone heads, right? Like, why do people bind their children's skulls? It's for a reason, right? They're trying to emulate something. So even, like, there's definitely something to it. But I mean, look at these machines. I mean, exactly.
I mean, they look like light bulbs, don't they? They look like some weird, this one looks like some strange light bulb. Can you see that? Yep. Are we on the same page? There's a man. Yep. And then you've got, and then the next one, I mean, that could have, I don't know.
You can see the electricity in that one from those 4 balls kind of creating a space.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think that would be how you would do it. You'd need to create some kind of, vacuum or void that the spirit could occupy, right? Come into. So, I mean, who knows? It at least looks good. And like I said before, that they're definitely trying to represent something and tell us something. I mean, it's just freaky though, isn't it?
It's freaky. Like, that one looks like it's a projector coming up out of this. So there's like, it's projected through the light. Just look it down at the bottom. Yeah.
Just like R2D2.
Look, I mean, again, we're not sitting here and psychoanalyze. I mean, like, literally analyzing these photos through the different ways people can tell if they're photoshopped or not. Like, that's, I mean, we've got to say that because these look crazy. These are crazy photos. Like, it's good for us to be cynical of their origins, but seriously, and they're hard to find on the level that you don't know what words to write. Like, it's not like they're categorized. You can't just write spirit technology or like, but you do see them coming through the Facebook page quite often when it connects to steampunk or Tartaria, vintage spirit technology. But honestly, I've seen hundreds of these photos now. So I don't know why you'd bother making them up. I don't know what would be the aim or purpose of, bothering to have this elaborate, Photoshop world. But there's enough of them for me to go, okay, well.
And they're all different people. It's not like one person, right, who's made a book of it or something. But the other thing is, look at the tech.
Yeah, exactly.
It all looks like it's been found. That doesn't look like stuff people were making back then. It looks like stuff that's found and they've worked out how to use it again.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting. And it's interesting, Campbell, because then if you draw a comparison to the way they'll use electricity in the lunatic asylums, quite often you can find images of people with these, like in the actual non-vintage era, so sort of like with these metal, they've always got these sort of strange metal encagements around them when they do all this electric shock therapy practices. So it's not like the technology was too much different between these images and, what we've been seeing more in the later decades of the lunatic experimentation.
Well, this is the thing, it's all electricity. And this is, you know, they try and tell us that electricity is so dangerous and you can't touch it or you will explode unless you have a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But really, that's not true. And back in the 1800s, they were just building stuff, right? They were just making their machinery and testing it out because you know they were allowed to, right? I mean, it's definitely connected to the lunatic asylums and electricity. So, you know, the question is, where were these spirits coming from? Were they somehow, you know, were they the lunatics? Were they transporting, testing stuff out on them? I mean, we just don't know. But look, this picture, this looks old and not alchemical.
Okay, yeah. So then I started to find these alchemical illustrated drawings, and why I noticed this one and two others was they were using the same sort of tech, and then the projection up was it looks like the sun, but a projection up to a face. And I was like, well, that's pretty similar to these other photographs, right?
Yeah, like, and it's also like the Vesica Pisces that you see when Jesus stepping through it and angels and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's just a different shape, isn't it?
So whether or not this technology, it's like we think about it as electricity, right? We think about it as like, you know, how we see light bulbs.
L is also God, remember? So
that's right. Yep. So let's take it. So we see electricity as this sort of thing that, like, we look at a light bulb and it's sort of filters through technology, and you know you can't touch it because you'll get electrocuted. And we see mental health treatment with electrocution as literal electrocution. We see people Google like this, you know. But when we look at the ether and how they were using that energetic, let's take electricity out of it, but that energetic before it became so callous as electricity and could hurt us. Because, you know, in the ether concept, we don't get etherified, like we don't get electrocuted or ethercuted. Like it's
all around us, right?
It's like air, right? Exactly. But with electricity, we get electrocuted. Yeah. So, and which is really interesting thing. So with that, talking to the spirit world within the ether, you know, potentially like we're just looking at communication with another realm or a broader realm. It's, you know, it's not dead people. It's completely, it's like a phone call. It's like Zoom. It's like Zoom using the ether.
It's Zoom between realms. I mean, and all those sort of pictures, you know, they look like they're creating, like I said, like a vacuum or a space. I mean, is that a portal, right? Is that like a wormhole to a different whatever, right? Land, dimension, who knows? And that's the thing, was all this tech left over? Was the old civilization talking to, and that we don't know that they were spirits. That's just what we're told, right? They could be people from other lands, for all we know. And we've been cut off, right? Literally communicated off. And with electricity, this is the thing, is, you know, the whole old world, everything we see is it was just drawing what's already there, right? They're just drawing it out. But now we're sort of brought up to believe that you have to make electricity, right? We think you need a factory and then you have to do all these things and create, make electricity. And when they do that, it kills. It's not good electricity, but that's not the truth, right? And that, again, that's just to stop us thinking we can just draw it out of the air. So they've just changed our whole perception of what electricity is.
Totally.
And definitely using it.
It's like, they Googled Earthed it. they Googled Earthed it. They gave us a parameter and said this is what it is, and then there's nothing else outside of this funnel. All right, so we've got these crazy photos and we've got this word lunatic asylum. Like, we can't dismiss that. That became the name for it. So it is somehow connected to Luna, to the night, to the moon. We know that the reset, potentially, our theory is that there was never darkness. There was two suns. Potentially the greatest weapon against the civilization that we study, Tartaria, that brought them down, was the introduction of the darkness. Literally the greatest weapon that no one could ever possibly fight, that shrinks you, changes everything, completely changes the biology of your vehicle, like introducing the darkness. Hence us as light workers, bringing back that connection to the light. So we can then use the working concept that the lunatic asylums had a connection to the introduction of the night, the darkness, the moon cycle, that potentially it was contributing. Now, we've been sold, Campbell, we've been sold the idea that these are crazy people, that we crazy people were put into these places. Now, let's just take that theory out and fucking shut up. Let's just throw that out for a second. Like, 'cause that's all we've been told. And if we've been told that, like, for sure it's wrong. So, like, let's assume they weren't mentally unstable people. Let's assume they had nothing to do with that side of things. Something else was going on. Now, were they using these asylums to experiment with the technology they didn't understand yet? Were they using it to see if they could somehow connect the technology left over from the Tartarian civilization in a way to harness or utilize for their own agenda? And did these buildings somehow become chosen to do those experiments? We know that in our lunatic asylums, as we know them, it's all experimental, traumatic, horrible, like crimes against humanity experiments going on today, to this day.
I mean, there's that story of the shaman back in the 70s who went into a lunatic asylum and basically said, oh, well, where I come from, we call these people, healers and prophets and stuff, and that's it, right? And that's sort of what we know what a lunatic asylum is, unless you carry the line, right, and bow down to what they want you to do, then you get put in the asylum and they possibly start testing on you. And you mentioned that show, The Dome, from Stephen King, and literally in that they're just all walking around and this dome just descends, right? And bang, they're suddenly in it. Some people are in it and some people aren't. Is that another drop? Because we have this story of that the rulers are trapped here too and trying to escape, right? So maybe they had this tech and they were trying to contact the outside world. Who knows? And they were trying to get it working again, and they were just using us as guinea pigs.
I've definitely heard that theory, Campbell, that they themselves are trapped. They can't get out themselves, that they are literally trapped within their own creation, their own hijacking. Desperate, they are desperate to like have freedom to leave the realm and escape the retribution potentially that's coming to them, escape the outcome of their actions, but they can't. They're literally entrapped as much as we are, and they will be. Whether it's karmically going to be a retribution or they're literally something's going to happen to, well, we know God wins, so something definitely happens. But I've heard that theory too, that they're trapped, essentially quarantined, can't leave the dome that they've created. And that may have happened, that may link us back to the destruction of the giant trees. The giant trees, like God literally cut those giant trees down, which may have been those exit points or the Jack and the Beanstalk up to the other realm, and that they were destroyed and it separated out the realm. So yes, we were entrapped. Maybe that was a choice for our own evolution by us. Maybe we did that to evolve us, but also they are also trapped in here by God's will.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and if you go back to that story of the flood, we're told that it was to wipe out all the demons, right?
Yeah.
But obviously a few didn't get wiped out. So I mean, it's like, oh crap, we'll just keep them all in there until those demons are gone.
Yeah, giant fishbowl.
So all this tech, they seem to be using a lot of it to get out, right? When you really look at it, all these rockets and NASA and all the money and shooting stuff up, all this kind of stuff, all the communication,
satellites,
AI technology, tunneling, hoarding food, all these kind of stuff.
The colliders.
The Hadron colliders, CERN, all this kind of, what are they doing, right? That they're definitely, they see life completely differently to us. So, and we're the guinea pigs, so what they were definitely doing experiments to help themselves with something. It wasn't to help us. And like I said, now we've got all these frequencies shoved at us, right? So we're more controllable at least.
Yeah. And, I remember seeing a clip of Hillary Clinton when she was running for the 2016 elections, and she was talking about the glass ceiling how there'll become a day where she'll be able to break through that glass ceiling. And when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, man, that's actually what you're after. You are trying your hardest to get through that dome. That's their whole agenda.
Yeah, we've got Operation Fishbowl, where they were shooting nukes.
Yep.
And then, there was a comet a few years ago up in the sky, and they said it was a comet. It looked like a speedboat driving on water. Remember that one? There's a channel, Mia's New Pair of Glasses, and she shows it, and basically she says that that's what they're doing. They're sending rockets up to try and pierce through and get into the waters above. And that's why when they do, we see it from below and it looks like a boat, right?
Yeah. Spraying surf. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. All right. So, and like at the time of the lunatic asylums, and we haven't even stated all the obvious things yet. We'll state them all in a minute. But at the time of the lunatic asylums, the literature was Edgar Allan Poe. It was Frankenstein. It was rebuilding humans with electricity, basically creating genetically modified monsters, as the books would present them. The Jekyll and Hyde, the skits. Oh, by the way, I've got a head cold, everyone. I'm coughing, I'm sneezing, but fuck it, I'm carrying on for our podcast today.
Well, you're in a dusty old room there, Cal. So
I know. Look at all the cobwebs around me. Because we all have head colds now because, we used to have them and that was pretty normal and okay, just so everyone knows.
Are you sure you're not going to die?
Anyway, so we've got the literature of the time when these lunatic asylums sort of started to become really big news, right? But they were also connected with the orphanages, and lots of the inmates of lunatic asylums ended up being pregnant single mums who had nowhere else to go. A lot of them were like children. A lot of them were just people who had no home. They ended up being taken to a place in these lunatic asylums. We know they did a lot of experiments. We know that had a lot of electricity. We know that it was cruel. They were cruel, scary, dark, horrible places. And they've maintained that today. And we know that because now around the world consistently, they will tell you that lunatic asylums are the most haunted places on the planet. They're the most haunted places on earth, and a lot of people go on ghost tours to lunatic asylums. We assume that's because they're so torturous and tormenting for the people who were there. But potentially it's because they actually were an institution generally trying to connect with spirit realm or create ghosts or connected with the haunted ghost realm, the 4D realm, the realm of the darkness. They were using that as the dark web of the time. Maybe the lunatic asylums were actually the dark web and were having that sort of connection, and the humans that ended up were just like the casualty that were just used as, fodder to like try to work out this web of darker technology. I don't know.
I mean, we don't know, how they were using. We've just got photos. We don't know if these people were focusing on people and putting thoughts into them, right?
Yeah.
If it was happening that way or if it was more like a communication, because, all the people in the photos, the ghosty people, they look like they're from the same place, right?
They do.
Same time, same place.
Same fashion.
Same fashion, everything. So they're either, just talking to each other or trying to manipulate people. But I was also going to say is all those stories, from that time period, all the monster stories, like we get Wolfman, which is the werewolf tied to the moon.
Yeah.
You get vampires tied to darkness and the moon and daylight.
Mothman, going to the night.
Dark. All the trolls and that live in the dark and under bridges, and it's all tied to this
darkness,
sort of dark and light and moon kind of thing.
It is. And lunatic asylums, they're always dark and scary. Always the greatest horror movies in lunatic asylums.
I got this picture in my head of, people have never seen the moon and it comes out and they're running around screaming like, oh my God, what's that? And literally get collected up and put into dark rooms so they can't see it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking of a civilization that only came from light, then the greatest torture you could do was to take any of those entities and actually put them in dark spaces or dark room and for long periods of time. and lunatic asylums are consistently underground. That's another thing. They're consistently underground, consistently full of tunnels. They're dark. They're fucking scary. They're put into these dark, scary rooms by themselves or in other wards, but it's always twisted and grotesque. Like all the beauty's gone. Like these buildings, they look beautiful on the outside. We'll talk about it in the moment, but inside it's grotesque and ugly and contorted. And it's like the lunatic asylums essentially represent a 4D crossover building, like a space that's sort of morphed into that dark look. Campbell just disappeared. You just disappeared like a ghost then. Yeah, that was funny. Like, but you know, if we were to look at morphing that 4D energetic realm, which is the realm of the ghosts, the spirits, and the darker, you know, things. If we were to put that into a physical building, then that would be a lunatic asylum. They're dark, they're grotesque, they're scary, they're contorted, they're weird. Everyone in them is dark and contorted. The people end up dark and contorted who spend too much time there. The rooms are dark and contorted. Nothing is beautiful. Nothing is balanced. Nothing is light and bright. It's all kind of fucked up. And to be fair, Campbell, I found heaps of photos, heaps and heaps and heaps of photos from this time period. I didn't want to even put them on. I didn't even want to show it. I didn't want to air them. They're all grotesque, and it feels to me haunted 4D grotesque.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always think about, you know, what was, because all the buildings are the same, right? They're all palaces, you know, literally. They could just call them palaces, and we'd believe that they were turned for something else. So I'm thinking they would have chosen them for that because the tech was already in those buildings. So what was the original use of the tech is, we know they invert everything. And if we're talking spirits, I mean, I'm wondering if they were places where you could go and connect, right, with your higher self or with your spirit guides, literally talk to them. And as they love to do, they've just inverted that and they've turned it around so that they can now bring spirits into you and possess you.
Makes so much sense.
You know?
Makes total sense. I totally think you're right. I think the buildings they're positioned in a certain place. Their original function may have been of a highest version of connecting with your higher self or the higher realm or something, you know, high and unified and gorgeous.
It's like we do now. People often go, you know, on like retreats, spiritual retreats, just on a grander scale and done properly, right? Yeah.
And we go into nature and find sacred sites now, but these could have been the sacred site buildings. And they've been inverted. And quite often, Campbell, they're out on a hill, they're out on the side of a mountain, they're in nature, you know, we're surrounded by beautiful gardens. Quite often they were beautiful, gorgeous estates.
Always, right?
Yeah.
In all the movies where they show them, and like, there's always that scene of, they're just walking around the gardens. And they've got like acres of this amazing garden. I mean, seriously? Well, who built that for a lunatic? We're going to build a lunatic asylum. Okay, we need to put the best gardens we can in there. And then what we'll do is we'll lock all the people up inside and torture them so they never get to enjoy the garden. I mean, it doesn't make sense at all.
No.
So,
and no one comes out of it well. One thing that we see with the Tartarian culture is this sense of living waters, and that this civilization were high frequency. They were beautiful. They were well dressed. They were gigantic. That there was a sense of wellness. Like we can't say that for sure. We haven't read the Tartarian. We haven't found books to prove this, but just as a basic observation.
They look self-confident and they look healthy and wealthy. Yeah.
Yes. And they were, innovating and designing and creating beautiful things. So just from what's obvious is that there was a high frequency going on. What's obvious about the lunatic asylums, and to this day, they come out more fucked up in every sense than they went in. That no one comes out of a lunatic asylum. I mean, you're a rare person if you come out better than you went in. If you come out well, you don't. You come out full of darkness, like a contorted, internal, tortured reality.
And think about all mental health, apart from the fact that it's skyrocketing, right? It's only getting worse. So clearly these things don't work.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, I don't know. Are there any mental illnesses that are to do with not having another voice or another kind of entity in your mind? Isn't that pretty much what mental illness is?
Bipolar, schizophrenic, like all of them, there's another entity
that
in your
ties
head.
straight into the technology, right, that we're talking about. They were bringing entities into people and creating these people, and then as they go along, like we said, they've evolved the technology, and now we see this more. So now they know how to create that trauma, you know, that TV, right, music, all this kind of stuff, and then those entities can get in and attach themselves to a wider population. So, but yeah, that's what mental illness is. It's more than one entity in a body fighting.
Splitting, So maybe the original lunatic asylums were the origins of the MK Ultra programs. The origin of them experimenting with that sort of how we utilize the human mind. Like we don't know when we were essentially reintroduced. We don't know exactly how we were reintroduced, or how intact our minds were already. But they do, you know, from here on in, we start to see some massive moves towards mind control programs, experimental with people's mental capacities to take torture and torment, the bringing in of the spirit realm, as you said, like the introduction of how do these hijacking force, this reptilian, this, you know, dracona, whatever word you want to put it, but this hijacking force, how they can attach to the human body and operate it or work through it or hijack it or take it over. So the lunatic asylums may have been those initial programs that were running, those initial locations.
Just thinking, I wonder where these entities come from. And do they look like ticks? Are they lunatics, right?
Lunatics, because, parasites.
Yeah, parasites, exactly. And this is, you know, like I said, this is what's happening with everyone, right? It's all these, and there's a massive, you know, it's quite big on the internet now, of doing regressions and detaching these entities, right, that have attached themselves to feed off us or whatever. And so, this is, they were just learning how to, you know, because if we look at this from, you know, they're all, can I say, like looser, you know, fairy-ian type people. So they're trying to bring their God in. Right? And their brethren, their entities, and that's exactly what they were doing. And so they're possessing us all, and now they're going for the wider population, because in the end it's all about control. But they needed to learn how to get these entities in and into a body, and that's what looks like what they were maybe doing with all this tech and the lunatic asylums as their you know, labs.
I mean, these asylums, they're so they've become synonymous with the worst of human behavior, but not just from the inmates, from the actual people who are there working there. Like, hello, like always in the movies, always in the literature, you see these horrible, beastly women and men who just like take these people through the worst, uncompassionate, torturous process, don't we? Like, it's just like, where's your heart? Like, you're not even being human. That's when I watch these movies, I'm always like, you have no heart. I don't get how you could stand there and wheel a screaming 21-year-old woman into a room, tie her down and electrocute her and feel nothing about it. And that's what we see over and over and over again. So
they're pretty possessed as well. I was just thinking of that scene from Terminator 2, I think it is, when Sarah Connor's trying to escape from she's in a loony asylum. And she's running out, and all the dudes who work there, they pull out these batons. They're all like got batons on them. They just start trying to beat her. And I'm just like, and these are the people that are supposed to be the carers.
Exactly. No caring.
And we know that that's true, that's what happens. And then they get you, and they tie you down and they shove chemicals in you or electro treatment.
Torture.
And I mentioned before, we've all seen the footage where they put them in front of screens, right? And they almost hold their eyes open. We make them watch stuff on a screen.
So MK Ultra now.
What do we do? Exactly. We go and pay them money to sit in a chair and look at a screen.
So right.
So it's it sounds and looks a lot like they were developing that technology, and they're like, okay, now let's make movies, and if we put this and this and this in it, it'll open them up. We'll get, we'll create a horror genre. You know,
Wow.
eating time.
Well, that's it. So the grand summary from Tartaria Australia is we are living in the end result of the lunatic asylums. The end. Sorry, everyone. We're all inmates.
So the whole realm is now one big lunatic asylum.
Yeah. I mean, and like the way that those nurses and doctors and attendants treated these people. I mean, is it any similar to the way the police have been treating people recently, or the army treats people when they invade countries, or anyone
Aged
out there?
care, you see it a lot in aged care.
Oh my God. So true. So awful. So and so much rape and violence.
Well, that they, I mean, no doubt they attract those kind of people, but they also, you know, they survive that you do a psych test when you go for these jobs.
Yeah.
You think that it's to find that, you know, the nicest mates. No, they're looking for the psychos, man, and they give them. That's who they want.
That's true. Same with the police force.
They're looking for the people who want someone who's weaker than them. You know, they're looking for the kids who used to kick, you know, sick animals, and that's who they employ. And those people are also more manipulable. They're going to get entities attached to them, and then that's what we see, right? The whole place becomes this dark sort of energy. And then, yeah, the poor people who end up in there, you know, and most of them are there because they've had something bad happen to them, right? And so, they, you know, they've got trauma, they might have an entity, and then they get thrown into this, and it's just.
So, okay, so, like, all right, let's just take it back now to how ridiculous these. Wait,
let me
just, I'm going to bring up now some of the buildings, right? So, we're just going to, like, now draw, oh, hang on, let me find it, a conclusion with how ridiculous these buildings are. These are just the ones in Australia that I just, like, found. And we're going to just see, these are just, Australia. I'll just go through quickly. We're going to just see, can you see those, Campbell?
Yep.
Like, you know, just how Tartarian they are. This one right there at the back. That is consistently Tartarian buildings, right? So obviously we're going to point this out by saying that if you were really seriously building buildings for mental health, for like people who had mental health issues, you wouldn't bother building this style of building. Like, hello, these are the same buildings that our government houses are in, our national libraries are in, our art galleries in, our museums in, and our post office and town halls and universities. That's right, Campbell. So, like, they are of the same caliber, they're the same style, they're the same expense, the same materials. Like, there's no way you would, I mean, a logical brain would not invest such resources and energy and you know, design or beauty into something to hold a few hundred potentially mentally unstable human beings. You wouldn't do it.
And there's so many of them.
Yeah.
So many of them. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they use these same kind of buildings. I mean, look at the gardens, right? I mean, this one's got like man-made lakes in it.
Yeah. There's all over them. There's lakes.
All for the people so that they could be locked in their room and look from their windows.
I mean, look at that one. It's a bad. That's pretty big.
That could be, that could be a palace or a university. But, you know, especially with the universities, the same thing, right? It's mind control.
Mind control.
Same as the asylums, right? And so with these palaces, are they the ones that they haven't, you know, flipped them, right? They're still getting the good tech or the good information out of them. They may still be. Because, you know, there seems to be all these different buildings. They all seem to have a function. That's what I'm sort of trying to get at the function of these type of buildings seems to be something to do with the mind and communication and the spirit world and all this, which is information, right? So they could incorporate that into universities, into the palaces where they live. You know, they keep it as good. So they, you know, they can talk to their spirits and get guidance or whatever. But then they invert it for all the buildings that they, like the asylums. But that's why they use them for asylums, is because the tech's already built into the building. Yeah,
I think so. I don't think anything, I mean, don't forget, like, because like when I was looking at this, I actually noticed there was quite a few good examples of the mud flood around these buildings. So like these buildings, this looks like they've been built, they're all full of flat, they look like they've been built, dug out of the mud, just like all the other buildings, right? So like,
Oh, wow, look at that one.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, is there a connection between the buildings they chose to dig out of the mud? You know, were these
Okay, yeah.
like somehow, I mean, that looks pretty mud flooded, doesn't it? Like it looks
Mm.
like we're at the top here of something beautiful and grand.
Mm.
And I found quite a lot of those sorts of photos where they just look like they're, oh, no, another one. Anyway, I mean, like, look at these buildings. Look at these buildings. So either A, they knew that these buildings had a specific technological attribute that would be in service to communicating or potentially letting the hijacked non-humans come through the humans somehow. They would have all needed to be dug out of the mud like everything else. Were the first lot of inmates there just as the diggers? Were they the ones there building, like getting these buildings out of the mud? I mean, this is it. And these,
oh, man, what the hell?
These photos are just the Australian ones, you know, like it's just Australian one.
Is that an asylum?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't even bother looking at asylums around the world because you guys already know. Like if you Google it for 2 seconds, they're gorgeous. They're beautiful
and they're all,
buildings.
yeah, they're all exactly the same as these ones anyway, aren't they? So it's yeah, I mean, I guess that they were using the buildings that were, you know, most useful, right? So the ones where the tech was still going or something, or because clearly, you know, some buildings they saved and dug out and used, and others they didn't. Others they demolished or didn't care about or whatever. Yeah. So it's got to be something to do with tech, doesn't it? Like still.
Well, that's a good working theory. I think it's a good working concept that, because I haven't heard anyone talk about this yet. That the buildings for lunatic asylums were linked to this 4D spirit realm access, dark web, if we say it like that.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said before, like information and connection, and that way we can tie it to universities, which are the same buildings, to the palaces, and it's the same tech, just used different ways, right?
Yeah. Like that one looks like it's dug out of the mud. Like,
and where are the roads, man?
Yeah, I know.
And I know. Again, Australia, like that thing, you know, when it was built, that would have been, you know, kilometers away from anything, right? It would have been out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't make sense.
I know, the roads crack me up. I was thinking about that the other day. I was looking for some other photos for one of our projects, and I mean, you just see these amazing townships, unbelievable, amazing cities, like Sydney back then. The 1800s was so advanced as far as the buildings but the roads, the roads are just dirt.
The people are covered in mud. But did you see John Levi? I think it was last week. He showed this clip. There's a guy in America, and he actually got like wooden wagon wheels made to put on his car, like on a F truck, and then he drove it around. But like literally, he didn't get far, and one of them just snapped in half.
Yeah, sure.
So it just proves that they can't do it.
It's a lie. Yeah, it's a lie. All right, so these are all a bit pixelated because they're small, but like these are just some of the asylums I found in Australia.
That's amazing. That's a palace. That
I
is
know.
a palace.
It's palace.
It's a palace.
I know, but no, these are things that we're just going to throw a few bipolar victims into. I don't think so.
I mean, and to get buildings that big, that they've been expecting a big influx of people, or they've been, you know, ready to kidnap a lot of people or whatever, right? They're expecting to fill them up.
Yeah, or maybe not so much fill them up, but like push them out. Like maybe there's a
okay, because of tunnels. Okay,
like
that's the point.
We haven't thought about that. Potentially they were used to bring people or things up from the underground and out into the culture. Was there some technology that somehow could bring these non-human energetics through and then put them into the human energetics, send them out into the world so they like had a life?
I mean, it would kind of make sense because, again, though, you know, we all didn't pass the programming, right? So the ones that were programmed and believed it all, they would have been let to go out, right?
Yeah.
as good little slaves, but then the ones that were like questioning it, they would have been like, no, sorry, you're going for electric shock treatment, buddy.
Yeah, because we've been taught, I mean, again, everything's got to be alive, but we've been taught that the mental asylums, the lunatic asylums, had patients going in and that they hardly came out. But imagine if it was actually the other way around. Imagine if all the psychotic bullshit that goes on today are entities that came up and out from the lunatic asylums.
Yeah, I haven't looked into it, but I just had a thought is, all these asylums, we're talking a lot of people. In Australia, in a young country with a small population, everyone should have known someone who'd been locked up.
100%.
Do we hear that? Do we hear these stories? We don't really hear them, do we? Of people who know these lunatics, right? The people who've been locked up. We don't. There's no stories of them, coming out of the asylums and being reintegrated. There's no stories of people losing their kids or wives or families or there's just no narrative to that at all, is there?
Nothing. It's very rare. Very rare. Yeah. I know. So a lot of these buildings, I think the very first asylum in Australia was introduced in 1811. 1811. In fact, I'll find that list. So let's just run through Australia because it was quite funny.
Melbourne's the best, I think. They built their first asylum before Melbourne was even a city.
I know. That was, and I think that was the Yarra Bend one. I think that was.
And then they
very famous.
They started off small and then they built the Yarra Bend, and that thing is massive.
Yeah, massive.
Huge.
So this is Wikipedia. So 1811 was in Castle Hill. It's since been demolished. But look at it again. It opens in 1811 and closes in 1826.
What?
Why? And then you can actually see chronologically the build up. So really, in the matter of a year between each one, you've got 1838, 1841. And this is just New South Wales. Look how many are in New South Wales alone. We were told there's hardly any population at this point. There's hardly anything going on in New South Wales, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, essentially 16 asylums just in New South Wales alone. Does that make sense to a new colony of energies? And do you really want to lock them up, Campbell? Fucking hell, Australia's massive.
Your people, you need a building force apparently, or at least a cleanup force. So, again, we could, tie this back to, in countries like Australia, where some of these people, the original inhabitants, they were already here. And, these asylums were just used as, instead of throwing them in jail, they just did experiments on them.
Yeah, they really all come up at the same time. For them to be that many just concentrated around Sydney is ridiculous. Look, this is Castle Hill. So this was 30 k's outside of northwest Sydney. So, and that looks pretty mud flooded. We'll have a look close up.
And 30 k's out of Sydney back in the day, that would have been a long, long way.
And who was there? No one.
And and the thing is, why so many back then? And why everywhere and so big? And now the population's, bloody at least 10 times as big, but, we know they're out there, but they're no longer these massive buildings, and it's no longer, full of people. It's, obviously it's hidden a bit, but I would think we don't have as many as we did have. So,
look, I can actually, can you see it when I put the mouse over and it comes up? Can you see that photo?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all right, let's just go through the photos then. This is just New South Wales. So you can see the style of building when they show us a picture.
Right.
Oh, look at that one.
Oh God. Oh wow.
That's a prison. That's a prison and a mental institute. That's massive.
And see, that's actually, it's a pentenary.
Yep.
Because they have 5. It's pentenary because of 5. They have 5 arms coming off them.
And that was built in 1841. And then demolished in 1914.
What?
You could why?
Look at the front of it. It's full of Greco-Romano.
I mean, I'm not saying we should keep these fucking things open. What I'm saying is, why would you bother building that in 1841 and then closing it in 1942?
Did they cure the, we know mental health's getting worse. They definitely didn't cure everyone.
I just go through so we can see the pictures. I mean, we saw a picture of that one already.
That looks like Perth Park.
Oh, that was a bit rough.
Oh. You wouldn't want to be out there, would you?
Look, when was it built, opened, or question marks?
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, it's like a little one. Pete Island, never heard of that.
Notice it says open. It doesn't say, built, does it? It says
no.
When they were open.
Operational.
Operational, yeah.
Yeah. All right, these pages don't exist. Don't know what. Orange. All right, no more pictures. All right, so Queensland, 1865, 1878, 1890. So they did 3 all very close together.
Yeah.
So we've got a picture. Oh, yep. That looks like the top of
something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, Queensland would have been small population.
That one's a bit rough. But like if you look down the bottom, it's mud flooded.
It's definitely mud flooded. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's like an old Queensland.
1890. That was in Toowoomba. And this is in Ipswich. Yeah, so look at those lovely peaks up the top. Again, down the bottom, I would say that's mud flooded. So I mean, these areas, Toowoomba and Ipswich, like they were out of Brisbane a lot. So look at the dates when they were
nothing back then. They would have just been a collection of a few farmers, if anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Tasmania.
Not all there either, because they're only showing 2 for South Australia, but I found about 5 or 6 really big ones in South Australia. So this isn't all of them.
No, yeah, so did I actually. So did I. This is Tasmania. That one's a creepy looking building.
Isn't it?
Ew. No, here we go.
Cascades female, like Cascades is it's a beer factory.
Yeah.
That was one of the first buildings built.
I've been there now. Yeah, that's a traumatic space. Yeah. All right, here we go, Melbourne.
Yeah, it is.
So let's have a look at some.
1825.
See what that? Yeah, look at it.
Look at that thing.
All right. 1848. What? Melbourne? Come on. Hello. We didn't have enough people to even determine crazy people at this point. Yeah. Everyone would have been feeling fucking crazy, I'm
in a new country and there seems to be a civilization here.
Absolutely crazy. And then we've got some good ones. See if there's any pictures. Oh yeah, this is a nice Tartarian one there.
And yeah, they're all.
Look at that one.
Tartarian. Like you don't see any wooden ones or.
No. Oh no. We like to treat our mentally insane people very grandly.
Well, yeah.
So even that's a contradiction because, like, we're going to build these gorgeous lunatic asylums, but then once you get in, we are going to fuck you up, man. You're going to get like this horrible bed in this horrible room, like. It's like none of it's consistent. Yeah. If we just look at the narrative, if you think you're going to bother building that building, then surely the inside's going to be just as elaborate and gorgeous. But of course, it never is.
No. And built, before infrastructure, apparently,
Yeah. So I'll quickly go through them now, just so we can get like an overview. That Q one was quite big, actually. It's weird. I think that's the one that looks like in the original photos I showed you was being dug out of the mud.
Okay.
Yes, so that one is a mud flooded one. All right, they don't show anything. Western Australia. Oh, so again, the dates in Melbourne.
Got a good one in Fremantle.
Look at the dates: 1948, 65, 66, 67, 71, 77, 79. Like it's just like every 2 years.
Yeah. And then they shut them down, which means there's less people. Oh, it's not a good shot. That's definitely an old world building.
Yeah, but
this one's huge.
Well, yep. It's an art centre now.
Art centre, yeah.
I know. And how many of these buildings are now apartments? And
I know. I wonder what happens to the people in there. Greylands. I went to school next to that.
Oh, really? There you go. 1909.
That's another massive, big red brick Tartaria. I'll have to get some photos of it.
Well, that's still open.
Yeah, that one is still open, I think. Heathcote, oh, yeah, I know where that is. And see, again, Perth, small population. You know, look, what have we got? 1865.
Sorry, I just jumped pages. I just jumped to hospitals. But sorry, yep, go on. There you go.
I was just looking at the dates.
Yeah.
1865, yeah. So when was Fremantle? So that's like 30 years after, I guess. But still, like, yeah, by 1865, I mean, Fremantle population was tiny.
Yeah.
It was tiny.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
So I got to assess that this whole world of lunatic asylums, obviously we know for sure they were not built by us. We know that for sure. They were not built to deal with treating mentally unstable human beings. They were built way too early in Australia's history for that. And too many of them were built in Australia's history for that. And no one ever came out better than they went in. You know, I think and I would say it's consistent of the whole world, and they're always haunted. So I really think, Campbell, that I think our working theory that these were actually, I like the idea that they were
centers. Yeah.
I like the idea that they were actually bringing things up and out and through the lunatic asylums. They're actually bringing creatures of the night, creatures of the dark through into human bodies and out into the population.
Well,
and
yeah. Exactly. I mean, we sort of have the theory that, you know, we were, you know, created or at least altered underground, right?
Yeah.
And then released. So that would make sense. And then, yeah, with all this machinery where they, you know, because obviously they want to bring their, you know, God into the world. So as they're bringing them out, they're just finding the ones that or at least creating the ones that they can then possess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And through doing that, they've let entities into the building that don't have a body, right?
Exactly.
So that's the haunting.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of conclusions to draw there. You know, Australia, of course.
How did we get here? Like, we have to do part two. Jeez.
Australia makes no sense in its history and narrative to even have lunatic asylums. No. I mean, to this day, the amount of mental health issues it's really high. It's really high, but you don't see people being sent into these. Really, do you? I mean, it's very. I mean, am I wrong? Is it still a thing that happens? You know, they're all closed down now, really, aren't they?
Yeah, they do have some, but nothing like, you know, like they used to. There's no, you know, rooms full of screaming people and all this kind of stuff that we sort of got told about. But I think a lot of that is, you know, big pharma, right?
It has, and like, you know, these lunatic asylums, they do go underground. Like they're, and you know, the movies are always shot underground. Like they go down and down and down, which really it makes a lot of sense that they do. A lot of them transcend to or integrate to prisons. Like the lunatic asylums and the prisons are sort of like hand in hand. A lot of these buildings are sort of one and the same. And then you've got these. They're similar to the military installations when it comes to the MK Ultra, that sort of programming stuff where, you know, you go down and down and down and down and down and it gets darker and more awful. And then we've got all this, like, you know, bizarre Victorian photography that comes out, this bizarre, actually I can show you one more. Look, I really didn't want to put much up because I just thought there were too, I don't know, Cam. I don't want to.
Gross. See, I know you can sort of feel the energy of them, can't you?
Yeah, you don't want to go through it. Oh. Like these are just, I mean, these are the milder ones I found, but you can see that there is this, and it doesn't make sense that you've got these energies when they reintroduce the population. And to be fair, Campbell, we don't know that we weren't reintroduced via the lunatic asylums, all of us.
No, yeah.
We don't know if we didn't come up through those tunnels and out from those asylums, that our programming happened within those asylums. We don't know if the deformities and these genetic modifications and what would you call mistakes, reintroducing and playing with the human form, did not happen at once as we were reintroduced, all of us.
I mean, yeah, I mean, those photos, that just looks like, yeah, experiments, doesn't it? And then we have all the pictures of all the other, you know, creatures and things back, you know, and really, I mean, they weren't that, they were only really 100 years before all these types of things. And then, yeah, Siamese twins used to be a thing. We don't hear about them much anymore.
I mean, we're led to believe that it's because modern medicine has improved the situation, but hello.
No, but I think it's more that they've found ways to get that tech onto the wider population.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I
mean, what is this?
Yeah, there's so many of them. I mean, and you know, so we said, even if it's photoshopped, I mean, well, that is Photoshop, but the other stuff, it's just so macabre. It's all coming from a dark, you know, that's who would have the idea, oh, look, I can Photoshop stuff. Oh, let's cut people's heads off. Like, that's not normal.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's weird.
I know.
It's always with the heads. It reminds me of that thing from the young ones when they little clip.
Yeah.
When they walk through, remember, they're holding their heads.
Yeah.
They drop them, like, that's my head. Give it back to me. Well, you're just saying that because I've got a nicer bum than you. No, I'm not.
It's really weird. It's really weird.
It's bizarre. Like that dude at the bottom's got two faces. I'm like, what, man? Two faces? I
mean, do you remember on the Gold Coast where I grew up half my childhood, there was a thing called Ripley's Believe It or Not. And they, nice, and they were, it was all like this sort of stuff, you know? It was all, and the Guinness, that's where the Guinness Book of Records also kind of melded in there, this weird, crazy book of these sorts of things. As a child, I was fascinated, I have to admit. It was like
and it's something that's kind of disappeared, you know, from the vernacular, hasn't it? From the zeitgeist. Is we did used to have all this stuff, and freak shows and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, freak shows, clearly, they were just made to give these people jobs, right? So they didn't starve or whatever. But it just looked like genetic engineering, because if this was like a normal human, you know, just a natural thing that happens, then, you know, we should have so many more of these people just because the population is so much bigger.
Look, sorry, I just had to show. I found that nice little sketch. Giant, beautiful giant lady being dressed by the little wee small humans. I mean, this giant lady looks like the face that comes through these spiritual technologies. I don't know, I'm just propagating, but sorry, you just said something just then. What did you just say? Because I was about to say something about it.
Oh, I don't know. Was it good?
It was good, always.
I don't remember. We were looking at weird people and genetic altering. And
the freak show. But like, we know that freak show was a consistent thing that would turn up in the World Trade Fairs as well. Like, they would have the freak show at the World Trade Fairs. Like, they were there. They were there, definitely. And I would say the freak shows were something that came out of the World Trade Fairs. That's what I think. I think that they probably extracted those as a sort of like an entertainment or something, and put them out on the streets as this sort of like circus thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, circuses are another thing I haven't really looked into, but it's the whole kind of it's all to do with reintroducing the population. And one is indoctrination, right? Telling us what the new reality is, and the other one seems to be sort of hiding all their mistakes. And all these freaks and all these weird stuff that we're not supposed to know about, and of course all these spirit stuff we're now told, well, that's just crap, it doesn't exist. But we've got photos of stuff that's unexplainable. You know, we have haunted houses and all these things, so they're clearly trying to cover up a side of reality that they're using, and they don't want us to think even exists, and they would only do that if it's a way to control us again. So I think it comes back to this: were they using that tech to learn how to manipulate people mentally and also make them vulnerable to other entities? And now they've just widened their market, and they're literally broadcasting, right? Casting their spell broadly on all of us, and that includes the movies. Like we said, we've always seen the pictures of the stuff, you know, the radio, music, frequency, the dark, the isolation, like, you know, the guards, right? Trauma. That's all the same thing that now is they've tried to put into life, right? They've tried to make us believe that's what life is.
Well, that, hey.
We just solved the problem. So that you go. That's the story of human existence, guys. We've worked it out.
All right. So, in summary, I would say, because we'll wrap it up now. In summary, I would say, Cambell, that our asylums, and the word asylum is very fucking weird. Yeah,
I didn't have time. I might put it at the end. I was going to do the etymology on it because it's got to mean something. Got to mean something.
Well, we know if we just look at the obvious, asylum seeker, asylum is like taking refuge, like, you know, needing that refuge, that help. I mean, the lunatic asylums, is that where the people of the lunar people, the people of the darkness would take asylum and come up out of it? Was it literally an asylum ward or asylum location, you know? Was it the coordinations of the I don't know, but there's something there way past.
I'm just thinking there's a story, I can't remember what it is, but of that we came from the moon, or that no, maybe it was the Anunnaki or someone came from the moon. From inside the moon, not like the physical moon, but like as a portal type thing.
As a realm.
Yeah, so we'll have to mark that down as a future episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's like definitely this lunar, this asylum, this hauntings, this spirit realm, this torture, this darkness, this scary horror show. It's all connected, and it all concentrates on these light locations. And every city has one, and every place that ever has a population has 10 of them. Like, you know, it maybe without us even knowing, were they like the antennas that were like setting up this program parameter around that city population? We don't know, but it's way more than just a mental health hospital, for fucking sure.
Yeah, it's a story, and the main thing is they were everywhere and massive when the population was small, and now that the population's massive, where are they all?
Yes, because. Right, because if it followed its natural progression, we would have like 100 to every city right now, but we don't.
We'd either have that or we'd have no mental health.
No mental health. No. Instead, what do we have? We have little pills everywhere.
Little pills. We've got the programs and the TVs, the movies, the 440 music.
Netflix and the pharmaceutical industry. We are in a lunatic asylum, and 90%, which I mean 90% of people have entities attached now. Like it's massive. 90% of the truth community, you know, all of us have entities at some level attached or feeding off our energy. We have to actually be focused in on and making sure that that's clear and clean and stabilized. Like we have to do that. We actually have to do that to fend off these parasites.
I know, right? Get the monkey off our back.
Fuck.
Bloody buggers.
I'm gonna ask JCK to come to our first Tartaria Australia event, or zoom in and help everyone be clear about the clearing of these parasitic energies. It's a theme in her work at the moment. So I think
she did a great last night, a great interview. So go check out JC's channel.
She's our soul sister. We
need to get her back on for another chat, but
All right, Cambell, look, fascinating, so much to consider and talk about. This is our first sponsored edition of Tartaria Australia.
Didn't know where that one was going to go, but I think we did quite well. And of course, guys, 25th of June. Live event.
We're doing it. It's wild. It's freestyle. It's organic. You know, it's absolutely, we're doing it live as we go through the next couple of weeks. We're bringing it together. We're asking for your contribution. We're figuring out where and how, and it's going to be such a beautiful, authentic community event where we're going to just be gathered at some to be announced location, and you know it's going to be a really dynamic day. You know, it's going to be so fun. I can't wait, Cambell.
It's going to be awesome. High energy, you know, connections, meeting people, of course, you know, history. There'll be special guests. There'll be fun things to do. And then, you know, we'll probably all catch up at night, maybe the next day. But with, you know, yeah, we want to create groups, right? So that we can all, you know each other, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all, you know, there must be lots in Melbourne, but you don't know where each other is. So we're going to do that. So link is below. Go and get your tickets now. Obviously, Kelly and I will be there.
Yeah, man.
We'll be talking everything alternative history in Tartaria. And yeah, the more the merrier. You know, the more people we get along, then the sort of bigger and better venue we can get. So that's why we're holding that off for a bit. But go and get your tickets. Get them as soon as you can. By 10, bring everyone you can. Let's have an amazing day.
Amazing day. They're $44.44. And we're just going to, have a really brilliant day. So I'm really excited, Campbell. And I hope the sound, I'm currently, you know, I've moved out of my flat, last weekend. And thank God, but like I'm now like freestyling it around. So I don't have my office set up. I don't have my microphone set up. So I do apologize if it sounds a bit tinny at the moment from my end, everyone. Bear with me. I'm freestyling in the lounge room at the moment. I know. I feel my lighting's all wrong. Everything's like, I might as well be at a construction site in the dark right now. But hey, it's been fun doing this episode. And I think we've got a really good gateway now to actually doing some proper theorizing about what these asylums were. So, hey, you guys, I'm expecting some fucking good comments tonight. I'm really excited to read where your inputs come through.
Indeed. Yeah, exactly. We didn't know where we were going to go, but I think we kind of hit onto something there. And kind of makes a bit of sense. So, yeah, we may have to hit back on it. So leave us your thoughts, leave us a comment, give us a like. Subscribe, share, all that kind of stuff. You'll find links to Kelly's Facebook and channel below as well. So go on, like, subscribe, all that awesome stuff. And more than anything, go down below and buy your tickets.
Yes, guys.
Commit to coming in, spending a day with us and everyone else.
We want to meet you. It'll be the best. It'll be so much fun. Fucking hell. I'm more excited because all of our beautiful minds together in one spot, you know, with an open mic and like working on all our theories, like, whoa, the energy is going to be so powerful and amazing. I just can't wait to feel that vibe.
It's going to be awesome. So, yes, make sure you're there or be something that's not a circle. And thanks for joining us, guys. And we'll talk to you all next week.
Awesome. Have the best day ever, Campbell. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.